Okay, so here is my second video, chapters like 6 through 10 of True, sort of. And if you didn't see the first one, I would probably recommend watching that video before this one. Otherwise, like, none of this is gonna make sense. So, alright, here is chapter 6. And this is right after Deli and RB went to go look for their present. So, chapter 6. They walked all over town seeking the present. They went to the river and looked for packages, wrapped or unwrapped, floating down it. They checked the garbage cans at the nicest houses, but there was no present tingle, not even a twitch. Deli sent RB to knock on Mabel Silcox's door. "You baking something today, Miss Silcox?" he inquired. She wasn't. They stopped at the Detbarn twins. Julius and Sissy were sitting on top of the stoop with a shoebox between them. "What do you got?" Deli asked. They showed her the mouse their cat brought home, still alive. They had put it in a box with a washcloth for a blanket and some peanut butter to eat. "You want it?" they asked Deli. She thought about the fun she could have with that mouse in Galveston. She closed her eyes and waited for the tingle to tell her that this was her present. It didn't come. "No, but thanks," she answered. RB and Deli sat on top of the steps of St. Eunice's church with their hands folded and their eyes raised to heaven for 10 whole minutes, but nothing happened. "This is a mysteriosity," Deli sighed. They ate lunch at the church. RB had stuck a jar of grape jelly and a loaf of bread in his backpack. "Knife?" Deli asked. He shook his head. "Water?" He shrugged. So they ate giant hunks of jelly on bread sandwiches. Their teeth and tongues turned slimy purple with white chunks. "Where are we going to now?" RB asked when they were done. She thought for a second. "To the IGA," she told him, and they took off down the street. The corner in front of the IGA was the busiest spot in town. If something special came to River Bluffs, it was sure to pass that place. They parked themselves on the sidewalk by the front door and waited. But it was boring just sitting there. Deli got an idea to pass the time. "I'm gonna teach you how to spit," she told him. "Yay!" RB clapped. "Watch," she said. She hacked up a goober and sent it flying down the sidewalk. It landed with a splat with purple and white chunks in it. "Wow," RB said. "Now you do it," she directed him. He puckered up and moved his mouth back and forth. Deli gazed down the walk, watching for the splatter. Instead, she heard a t-t-t beside her. She felt a mist of spit on her face. "Hey!" she shouted. "Not t-t-t, not through your teeth, like this." She hacked up another one. Thump! It left her lips, then splat. "Your mouth's a spitzuga, she told him. RB nodded. He got a giant goober on his tongue, and then his mouth exploded. It was big and purple, and it went more up than out, but it landed with a whap, sending saliva in every direction. "Nice!" Deli said, and RB glowed. And then it was spit fireworks at the IGA. Those two were so busy perfecting their spit skills that they didn't notice people trying to get by without getting splattered. Clayton Fitch turned them in. "You got those little Pattinsons outside spitting purple at everybody," he tattled to Norma, the cashier. Norma looked out the window, and the two purple spitballs sailed by, and there was Mabel Silcox, all 80 years of her, trying to jump out of the way. "Deli!" Norma growled. She ran to the window and banged on it. Deli was too busy for her to hear. Norma was yelling now, things like, "Calling the police!" and "Jail time!" She was so loud RB heard her through the glass. "Deli," he told his sister, "you'd better look." So she did. But by then, Norma was shooting out the door of the IGA, like she'd blasted out a bazooka herself. "Deli Pattinson!" she shouted. "I'm taking you to Verena." Deli heard that. "RB!" she yelled. "Run!" The three of them raced down the walk, with Norma howling, "Stop those Pattinsons!" Suddenly, the air was filled with a strange song. It was metal squeaking and something creaking, rubber thumping and something else bumping. It was coming straight at them. They all stopped running and turned to it. That's when Deli got the tingle, bigger and stronger than ever. "My suppressant," she breathed. Okay, that was chapter 6. Chapter 7. 5 minutes before, the green Impala with the trailer behind it had turned off the highway onto River Bluffs Road. The car brakes squeaked every time they got tapped. One-wheeled wumped as it went around. Wind got into the trailer and made a wailing whistle as it passed through. On their own, each of those sounds might rub an ear raw, but together they made a song, a sad song of things gone wrong and barely hanging on. The green Impala with the trailer behind it squeaked and wumped into town. It passed the debt barns yelling, "Mouse for sale!" and silenced them with the song. It screeched by the park, and the kids on the basketball court quit playing. Finally, that green Impala with the trailer behind it squeaked toward the stop by the IGA. By the time Deli saw it, she was tingling to her toes. It was a surpresent coming at her so loud she couldn't miss it. She forgot about Norma. She walked to the curb and waited. "I was worried," she whispered, "but you're here." She closed her eyes. "Better than 10 pans of brownies," she told herself. "Better than a new sister to replace Galveston," she could tell by the tingle. She felt the heat of the car beside her. She opened her eyes and gazed into the green Impala. "It's," she explained as she searched the front seat. "It's," she said, scanning the back, then she muttered, "What the glub?" The back of the car was empty. Up front, a man was driving, and the seat nearest to Deli was a boy, a pale, skinny one with short hair. He was hunched over, wearing a too big t-shirt. "It's nothing?" she mumbled. The tingling was so strong, though. It was shaking her. "You got to be here somewhere," she insisted. She searched again, but there was nothing close to a present in that car. There was nothing that said, "See, Deli? After all the trouble, here's something good. There's still hope for you." She felt her hope leaving her. "No," she rasped, and the no joined the rumble of the car so no one heard it. Except the boy. He glanced over at her. After, Deli only remembered his eyes. They were blue like ice, with sad stories frozen inside them. They made her shiver. The boy turned away. Then the green Impala with the trailer behind it wumped and whistled through the stop, over the bridge, and out the river road. Deli stood at the curb, blinking. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the boy's blue ones. "Deli," RB tugged on her. "Huh? You ready to go? 'Cause here comes Norma." With the song gone, Norma was blasting off again. "You stay right there," she shouted. "Run!" Deli yelled. They sprinted, full speed, no stops, all the way home. They dashed to Deli's room and dove behind the bed. "Del?" RB asked, still gulping air. "Huh? Was that your present?" It took a second to answer. "No," she told him. Then she hollered to the world who would know it. "That was not my present!" Chapter 8. The old Hennepin place was on River Road, just outside of town. The house was gray, with a gray drive and a gray stoop. A basketball hoop hung on the gray garage. Woods surrounded the yard, so even when the sun shone, the house stayed in shadow. The green Impala with the trailer behind it squeaked to a stop in the drive. The driver's door creaked open and wumped shut. Squawk, then thump went the passenger's side. The man opened the house. Ferris Boyd opened the trailer. They carried their things inside without a word between them. The birds were talking, though. They were everywhere, chirping and chattering like the welcome wagon on wings. It was almost dusk when they were done. The man went into the house, and a light came on in the back of it. Ferris Boyd reached into the trunk of the green Impala. She pulled out a backpack and an old basketball. She shuffled up the drive. As she got to the steps, there was a tiny rustle, a sound so small nobody noticed. Ferris Boyd stopped. She tilted her right ear toward it. There was a crackle. Slowly, Ferris Boyd turned. Her eyes traveled along bushes and between trees till she found the one who'd called her. It sat in the shadows of the edge of the woods. Its eyes glowed golden. Ferris Boyd blinked. The eyes blinked black. How? It wondered, and Ferris Boyd answered without saying a word. It flicked its tail twice. All right. The girl went into the house. In a minute, she was on the stoop again. She set a bowl in the grass, and she sat on the steps and waited. As the creature crept across the lawn, the girl stayed still. When it put its head in the bowl, she didn't move. When it was finished, it walked past her, bumping her shins with its body. Ferris Boyd raised one hand so her fingers brushed its back, and it purred. It ran across the lawn and stopped at the edge of the brush. The tail flicked twice. "Good night." Ferris Boyd nodded. Then the black cat disappeared into the darkness. The pale, skinny girl slipped into the house. A light came on in the upstairs window. Okay, that was chapter 8. Chapter 9. At dinner, Deli was still thinking about her present. But now there was no smiling. Now, instead of her hoping for a puppy or a magic wand to make Galveston disappear, she was wondering, was the tinkle just teasing me? Or worse, will anything good ever happen to me again? It felt bad, the kind of bad she'd need a fight to forget. Clarice was occupied with other things. It wasn't that she forgot about the present, but with Montana dogging her, "Ma, I need money for my date," and Tallahassee begging, "Can I stay at Fern Teeter's, please?" There was no room to remember. "Ma, we need more beans," Arby announced. While Clarice was filling the bowl, Galveston quit chewing her potatoes to chew on Deli. "So," she sniped at her, "where's that present? Is it in the garage, or does Verena have it all locked up?" The other children held their breath. Dallas and Tallahassee got ready to squeeze. But Deli stared at her plate, like she hadn't heard a word. The others sighed and went back to their food. And Deli was flying across the table. She was gone before Dallas and Tallahassee could touch her. She landed on Galveston's chest and got her by the hair. She was yanking on it, left, then right, like it was the reins on a bucking bronco. Gal was making strange sounds. "Ooh!" And Deli was yelling, "That's so funny, Gal! How come you're not laughing now?" Clarice got to them first. "Let go!" she hollered as she pried off the tiny, terrible fingers. Galveston was clutching her scalp, screaming, "Am I bald? Did she bald me?" Dallas threw Deli over his shoulder and started up the stairs. "Galveston!" she howled. "You stay in your room until I tell you," Clarice shouted at her. "Row, row, row," Deli growled. "But Ma," Gal cried, "she has dishes." In a flash, Clarice was in her face, fuming. "You'll do the dishes tonight, and you'll do them every night for a week." Gal thought about whining some more, but Clarice was too close. "Yes, Ma," she whimpered. Clarice was waiting till she calmed down to talk to Deli. That didn't happen till 2 hours later. Deli was on her bed, facing the wall, when her mom walked into the room. "Don't leave this house till Monday morning," Clarice ordered. "And you've got dishes next week. With your sister." She turned to go. "Ma," the rasp called. "What is it?" Clarice said, still hard. "It didn't come." "What didn't come?" she asked. And the rasp was so filled with sadness it almost couldn't speak. "My present." Then Clarice remembered. "Oh," she sighed. She sat on the edge of Deli's bed. She watched the tiny back breathing. "I thought you were going to meet it," she said softly. "I did." "Well, where'd you go?" she wondered. Deli told her all the places she'd searched for the present. "There's your problem," Clarice said. "That present couldn't catch you moving around like that." Clarice's words sent little sparks of hope to Deli's heart. She turned toward her mom. "You think?" "Yep, you gotta stay in one place, which is good because tomorrow you're grounded." But Deli needed more than that to get her hope back. "Ma, are you sure?" And Clarice, remembering Deli's smile that morning, said, "Sure." That did it. Hope flickered back in Deli's heart. Then it went full flame. She lay there in the warmth of Clarice's "sure." "Good night, Deli," Clarice said as she got up off the bed. "Good night, Ma," the rasp replied. Chapter 10. Brad Kinney lived out the river road, about a half-mile past the old Hennepin place. He was in the 5th grade at St. Stalinus, the boys' school 2 towns away. Brad Kinney loved basketball. He played before the bus picked him up. He played at night with the porch light shining. He played all day in his head while his teachers were talking. And on Sundays, he was at the park playing with the other River Bluffs kids. He played till his arms ached and his fingertips rubbed raw. Because what Brad Kinney wanted most was to play basketball like nothing nobody'd ever seen, only better. Brad's 2 front teeth were fake. They glowed white in the light. He got those teeth making a basket, so they were like tooth-shaped trophies. They'd been playing in the park. Brud, Gwenny, Tater, the Depp Barnes, and the Novello. It was a close game, and it was getting mean. Tater got the ball in to Gwenny. "Brud!" she hollered, and hurled it down the court. With Novello breathing down his back, Brud grabbed it. He took a step and jumped high in the air. His hand sent the ball soaring into the sky. As he came back to earth, Brud's eyes watched and his ears listened for the swish of the score. So he didn't see Novello's elbow coming at him. He didn't hear Gwenny shout, "Watch out!" He hardly felt the bone hammer his mouth. Brud's body hit the ground with a thud. His mouth started shooting blood like a crimson geyser. Danny Novello was dancing around the court, screaming, "There are teeth in my arm! His teeth are in my elbow!" Tater and Gwenny leaned over Brud. "Wow," was all Tater could say. "You all right?" Gwenny asked him. But Brud only wanted to know, "Did I make the shot?" "Yep," she told him. Then Brud passed out, smiling. That was chapter 10. Chapter 11. Sunday morning, early, Brud was heading into town to practice. In real life, he had his basketball under one arm, and he was riding his bike down the river. But in his head, Brud wasn't on a bike at all. In his head, he was already at the park playing ball. He was shooting from the inside, the outside, and every shot was a swish. In his head, Brud was playing like nothing nobody had ever seen before, only better. And today, Brud didn't just see it in his head, he was hearing it too. There was a thump, thump, thump of a ball bouncing and a clang of it against the rim. For the first time ever, Brud's vision had a soundtrack. By the time he got to the bridge, though, the thumps and clangs had almost disappeared. "Hey," he said, like somebody messed with his movie. He stopped his bike, but the thumps and clangs kept coming, from behind him. So Brud rode back out to the river road. The sounds got louder as he came to Old Hennepin Place. He set his bike and ball in the ditch, and between trees he saw it. At the end of the drive was a boy, a pale, skinny one. He had short hair like Brud's. He wore a Lakers shirt, like the one Brud had at home, and he was running, dribbling a ball between his legs and behind his back like it was nothing. Then he jumped and sent the ball into the hoop. Swish! It made the sound of perfection. It was Brud's vision, without Brud. Now some people, seeing somebody steal their vision, might get mad. Not Brud Kinney. Maybe if I watched this boy, he thought, I could learn to play like that too. He got him so excited his mouth whistled. Whoo! The whistle stopped the boy. Brud slapped his hands over his mouth. Shoot, he mumbled, and ducked behind the brush. The boy held the ball tight to him. His scared eyes searched along the bushes. Now some people, after almost getting caught, might hightail it out of there. Or they might say, "Hey, I was watching you. Want to play?" Not Brud. He loved basketball too much to leave, and he didn't want to ruin it with trying to talk. "Don't stop," he whispered. Finally, the boy got back to playing. "Yes," he breathed. But that wasn't enough for Brud. He needed to get a closer look, he decided. So he snuck behind trees and bushes till he was across from the boy. He peeked between branches. "Don't mess me up again," his head told his mouth, and he watched. Up close, the boy was even better. He could dribble backward, forward, and zigzagging. He could shoot from inside, outside, and everywhere in between. Brud was taking it in. In his head, he talked to himself like a teacher. "Look how he holds the ball. Look how low he goes before he jumps." His head was so busy teaching, it didn't notice what the rest of him was up to. Because Brud's body was already trying it out. When the boy dribbled down the drive, Brud's hands pushed an invisible ball. When the boy crouched with the ball over his head, Brud's knees bent. And when the boy sprang to the air, Brud did too. He came crashing through the bushes with his arms over his head. He landed in front of the boy. They stared at each other for a second. The boy's eyes were filled with fear. He turned, ready to run. Brud knew what to do. He had to tell the boy, fast. "Hey, I'm Brud. I was just watching you play. You're good." As the boy sprinted to the stoop, Brud took a deep breath. "Hey," he hollered, "I'm Brud," and the boy was at the door. "Now, please work just this once," Brud begged his mouth. His jaw jerked, his lips opened wide. Then he yelled, I'm but the door slammed. The boy was gone. Now some people, after scaring somebody like that, might go to the door and explain things. But at the door, Brud'd still be saying, but. And some people, Brud's head said, after seeing a stranger jump out of the bushes, Might call the police. Shoot, he stammered and sped down the drive. As Brud rode into River Bluffs, his head cussed his mouth. You're always messing me up. You wrecked it, and there's nothing to show for it. But he was wrong about that, because when Brud got to the park and started playing, he was better. He could feel it in the way he dribbled. He could see it, the way the ball went to the basket. You're playing real good today, Brud, Gwenny told him. He didn't try to say thanks. Danny Novella watched him, squinty-eyed, suspicious. Think you're going pro or something, he sneered. Brud just shrugged. That night, Brud Kenny lay in bed with his moon shining in his window. He thought about the boy, dribbling and jumping and shooting like that. He thought about playing at the park and how sweet the swish of the net sounded. Then Brud Kenny smiled. The 2 teeth twinkled in the moonlight like stars. Okay, so that was chapters 6 through 11 of True, Sort of. And I'll be reading more chapters later. So thanks for watching. Yeah.